Okay, today I have the pleasure of getting a chance to talk to Ross Lamond from Lamond Designs. He's one of the big time case makers out there, but he's also really active in the community of modular synthesizers, system development. I see him often on the Facebook groups and stuff like that. So he's a real active part of the community, and I have not interviewed anyone who's a case builder yet for this, and since cases are such an integral part of how we put together modular systems, I thought it'd be smart to talk to somebody about it, and Ross was nice enough to be willing to do it. So with that, we'll say hello to Ross. Hey Ross, how's it going?
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks a lot for taking time out of your schedule to have a chat. This is really cool.
No problem at all.
Yeah, so let's first of all, why don't we start off by you explaining a little bit about Lamond Designs and talk specifically about what your specialties are.
I suppose the first thing to remember about anything that deals with me is I'm self-taught. I just wanted to do it through the story, if you want to hear the story about me getting into modular. But I started it because I wanted to make a pretty case. I had a Dope for 9U system from Darren Ager, who does the Bug brand stuff now, and he was selling it. I was there to pick up a drum machine, and it looked mad, and what I liked is there was no structure, so you could just plug things in and make weird noises, which I really appreciated. But despite the fact that Dieter does great cases with the plywood, it was very just simple. So I found out Matthew Goik, had quite a few conversations, and then just started making cases because I wanted to.
So did Matthew actually share his designs? Because I mean, they certainly look similar, and you talk on your website a lot about kind of adapting his designs for your use. Did he share those with you?
Oh yeah. We when I first wanted a case, I seen Matthew's case on Muffler, and because there's never really that many groups on Facebook at that point, so I seen it on Matthew's, and so I sent him a message saying, you know, I can't really afford one of your cases to get it shipped in from America because charges and postage. Would you mind if I bought the plans for you? And we agreed a price, and he said, yeah, sure, just make sure you build them for yourself. And I was like, absolutely, you know, I won't plagiarize anything, just looking to get a really pretty case. So he sent me the details to get a plastic 12U template made.
Okay.
And the details to the rails. He sent me some brackets that he designed himself for the rails. So he gave me the basic building blocks, and then I asked my friend to build it. And it took him so long that he said to me, he says, well, go see this guy called Dick, who runs his own wood shop. He's an older guy, he might be able to help you. So I took all the gear over and said, oh, I know Matthew, he sent me over here. And he said, yeah, I'll help you. And in the end, this guy was very instrumental in my decision to do this. And he showed me how to do another template so we didn't damage that one. And then I had some wood as well, and he showed me how to sort of plane it, thickness it, put it all together, and it was okay. You know, I would have given it. Now I know how tight I do things. I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10, maybe 6.5. But it was really good. But as he was doing it, and this is where people told me not to swear, but this is the exact sentence that went through my head as I was watching him doing it, and I had an epiphany. I just went, pardon my French, but it was, fuck me, I can do this. Right? It's literally, that was the sentence that went through my head. So I went home and told my wife that I wanted to do this, but I had to obviously speak to Matthew. So I got back in touch and said, listen, these guys are taking too long. I've seen what this guy's doing. And I used to fit flooring and doors and architraves and all that stuff in previous lives.
Okay.
And I said, I think I could make your stuff, and what I'd love to do is be able to offer people in Europe and the UK and places where he doesn't really see his market, postage costs and exchange rate, etc. And he said to me, he says, if you can make them tight enough and good enough, because obviously I'm very aware of Matthew's brand as such. Sure. So I did. I went and spent. So I went back to my wife and said, Matthew's very graciously said he'll help me, and he did. He helped me, but he didn't give me it on a plate. He made me think of things and go get my own screws for this, go do this, go do that.
Mm-hmm.
The templates and the understanding of how to do it, how even to using rebate router bits, etc., to put the back panels on. So I came back to my wife and I said, because another part of the story is I've been a house dad, and I've brought the kids up. My wife's be a principal over in your world, a head teacher.
Right.
So after the kids went to school, I said, right, I can go get a full-time job now. And my wife went, no, you can't. I was actually quite surprised. I said, what do you mean? She says, I brought them up. They're at school. She says, well, what if they're ill? What if something happens? I've still got to do my job because she's the main breadwinner. And I went, okay. So she actually told me just to take some time off, play golf, do whatever I wanted. And then I was bored for about 2 months. And then this thing with Matthew, the Goit cases came along and developed into the story I just told you. And then I came back to her and said, how you've been telling me to fill some space in, some time in? I says, well, I think I could make these cases. And if you ever speak to my wife, she'll know if I get something in my head, then I'll achieve it and do it.
Right.
She went, okay. I said, but I think it's going to cost $7,000 to start off, so I've costed it up. And she looked at me and went, well, as long as we can put it back in the overdraft and you're confident. I said, well, the market is about 0.1% of a normal business, but it will keep me busy, and I'll be able to make nice, beautiful things, and a bit of creativity. So she went, yeah, all right. So I started. I just bought all these tools and bought wood and started making chopping boards to learn how to use the router and the biscuit. Sure. So I just made things until I'd got used to the tools after a couple of weeks, and then just started making Goit cases.
Interesting story. Well, first of all, congratulations on finding the world's most amazing wife. That's a pretty great.
Oh, she's pretty damn good. Yeah,
pretty great part of the story, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But also, it's interesting to me. I mean, this is the kind of. This is one of the reasons I like doing this podcast, because the completely insane way that people get into doing what they do, right? So
yes, completely to me. Yeah.
All of this came about because you stumbled upon a synth system while you were looking to pick up a drum machine. That's really how this started.
To pay for it.
It's
and
amazing.
I looked at it and I went, what is that?
Yeah.
And if you look up, I don't know, I can never remember if Darren pronounces his surname Ager or Ager, but he has something like 2.5, 3 million hits on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really a fanboy of many people, but I loved his music and all the old house stuff.
Right.
And I got to know him through the Electron website. I said, can I come and pick up the drum machine? Because I knew he had other gear. And then he said, oh, this is the drum, and you trigger it with this. And then he starts doing this little acid techno track in a matter of a minute, 2 minutes of patching. And I was actually initially, like most people, I was put off. I was like, that's far too complicated. I'm a one knob per function person,
right.
Completely. But then he showed me, and then I actually sold another item. I think it was a machine drum, and I thought, that'd be quite fun just to make noise. So I got back in touch with him, and then just picked it up and started from there. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. But it's also, it's the way this stuff has to happen, and it's the way that we stumble on passion stuff, right? Because one of the things is, if you try and think ahead of time on what you're going to be passionate about, I'm not sure that you ever have the right motivations to pick the right thing. But in your case, kind of this peculiar thing of you have your wife kind of trying to push you into doing some stuff that isn't like work. And also having this kind of interest in music, but not being sure how technical you want to be about it. And but also being intrigued by a certain kind of sound. All these things kind of colluded to give you something where if you tried to think ahead of time what you should be doing, it wouldn't have had any of the parts of it that ended up happening, right?
Yeah, I'm very much a fly by the seat of your pants. I mean, I do think a lot about, like, especially now. I sort of one of the funny things, when I started this all, it was just a little bit of a hobby to fill in time,
Mm-hmm.
and I sort of, because of my anal retention of getting things as tight and as nice as possible and picking wood, I've sort of backed myself into a corner of I can only ever make really pretty, nice stuff. You know,
Right.
I can't release one thing. Somebody goes, Ross made that. So it has its positives and its negatives,
Sure,
and
sure.
it does actually impact on my anxiety levels in a huge way.
Totally. Well, it's interesting because that one thing I would say is there is nothing on your website that looks like a toss-off, right?
Yeah,
Everything looks impeccable. And I think that's what across the board, when people talk about your work, that's what they talk about. They are willing to wait because they know they're going to get something impeccable, and they know they're going to get something that is unique. And I think that that's important with something like the modular system because in terms of bringing together the modules, you're designing an instrument, right? But if it sits inside of the equivalent of a couple of 2x4s, it doesn't feel like a very desirable instrument. And by encasing it in one of your beautiful cases, all of a sudden it has all of the kind of emotional draw that a great guitar or a great bass or a beautiful piano or something might have because there's this organic element to it as well as the pure electronics.
yeah. I mean, I've had this conversation with many people when I tell them, say, a price for a case, and they're like, "That's really expensive for some wood and some metal and power."
Hmm.
And I always say to them, "Okay, let's just look around your living room. Do you have an oak table and chairs by chance?" No, no, no. I've got X type of wood, so that's really nice. Right? Yeah, yeah. So what material is your sofa? Oh, it's leather.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. And so how many pair of shoes do you have? Well, I've got 6 or 7. Yeah, I've got brown ones. Well, there you go. Every part of your life is about style and quality and wanting the nicest things in each section. Yet you want a plywood case to put £10,000 worth of equipment
Right.
that you want to obviously show your emotion and your skills in making music. I says, or do you want to come in and have a look at a case from different angles depending on the lighting in your room and catch it? It's like a beautiful car. You know, when it goes down the street, you know it's a beautiful car, so you have a quick look because it's amazing. But you might not actually stand in front of it for 10 minutes. You know,
Right. Right.
it's yeah. A lot of the things I do is to get that glimpse of that's mine. You know, you're not going to stare at the case for 10 minutes, but
Right.
for 5 or 10 seconds when you walk in the room. I mean, one of the things I sort of my little things I go by is I never want anybody to resell my cases. So I put enough effort into it, like picking the wood, the right angle, different combinations, quirky things. So it's the last thing that goes out of that person's studio.
Right. I want to talk about your designs a little bit more, but before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about your more about your story because there's kind of a preface to the things that you've told us all about so far, which is this idea that you were going to look at a drum machine. So you did have kind of a musical background of some sort coming into this and coming into your introduction into the modular synth. What was that background? What got you started in electronic music to begin with?
Well, I always from the early '90s doing rave, going to Cream nightclub in Liverpool in the back room with Andy Weatherall, Carl Cox, all the proper guys just giving it some great sort of like techno and really hard house nights. I just enjoyed that. It sort of made me doing all that culture and the sort of person I am. And then round about 98, I moved to Peterborough, where I am now. And within a month of being here, I met my wife Nikki that we were talking about earlier. And I'd always wanted to make music. I bought a lot of stuff. I bought like a mixer. I had a Yamaha RMX1, which is my name on eBay, believe it or not. A couple of Korg electrides, the red and blue one, the synth and that. And then I had an Extreme Lead one, the orange 19-inch rack thing, the one new thing. So I had all that gear and with all these grand ideas. But back then there was no internet, there was no YouTube, really, internet-wise. There was some forums and that, but there was no easy to share and an easy way to get the information on how to set the MIDI up. I didn't understand the channels or how to talk to each other. So I sold, must have been a couple of years later, I sold it all at a great loss because I had nobody to help me. I couldn't figure it out, so I just cut my losses. And then so I've been doing the cases for 5 years. So about 2 years before that, in our new house, I said to my wife, I'd love to just get something that I can just play around with. And then I came across Electron boxes, 16 steps, 4 bars. Even I could understand that. Even if I can't program it properly, I can understand that you press play and then you can twiddle knobs and pretend to be a musician. So I got a few of the boxes and I really enjoyed it. But another guy, a guy called Andy Williamson, who is Tib on the forum, he came down and tried to help me set up my mono machine, and it ended up having a little bug. So we spent all day trying to fix it, and even he couldn't fix it, and he's pretty much an expert on these things. And it was actually a little thing we needed to download. But that sort of gave me the sense of belonging to a community, where somebody who'd come all the way from Derby to come and help me fix my synth and to show me how to play it. And that sort of got into my mind about how sort of cool and nice the community is. So and then I just played around with stuff. Got like a Nord lead, I think it's Nord lead, the little rack one. I went through loads of it because I didn't like reading manuals. I'm quite happy reading, but I didn't like reading manuals. So I then just, as I said, came to the buying the drum machine because I know how to work them. You press play and it's got 16 steps again. And then met Darren, and he was the gateway. They call it the gateway, don't they, to Eurocrack.
It's interesting to me that you kind of came up through sort of like the most fertile ground of techno, which was that whole rave scene in the UK in the 90s.
Yeah.
You never found a group in those people, a group of music makers that you were comfortable working with?
No, because I don't look upon things like working with. I mean, for example, the last couple of nights I've been in playing with them on modular. Now I'm basically all the gear and no idea, but I've decided this year is I want to actually learn. So I was in teaching myself about envelopes and triggers and just trying to get some cohesive music together. I mean, it's okay having an octatrack and it puts everything together and it sounds great, but I'm trying to learn a bit more than just having this gear and having no idea with it. So I don't work with people because I don't feel confident that way, but I do like to make noise, and I love drums and bass, or drum and bass. I like that as well, but drums and bass are just, that's what I listen to all day at my work. It's just Berlin tech, hard house, old school 88, 90, 92, like your Derek May stuff, Van Atkins, Kevin Saunderson, or anything that's just hammering it. And all day, that's all I listen to, non-stop.
Yeah, I'm with you there. For me, I can flip on like, a Derek May compilation or something and be happy for hours just letting it repeat over and over again, right? That stuff still speaks to me so much.
It's very much.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you loads of acts, I couldn't tell you loads of names of songs, but I can tell you if it comes on, then it's mine, and I'll listen to it forever.
Right on. So let's talk a little bit about the work you're doing now. First of all, you talked about getting this equipment and making like cutting boards and stuff to get started. Are you using like automated or like robotic machinery? Is it all straight hand run machinery?
So I've actually asked myself that question many times. Believe it or not, because I like to talk to myself during the day. It keeps me happy. And it's handmade, but I use things like routers and obviously drills and biscuiters, for joins, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But every case I've made, obviously plywood doesn't count because that comes pre-made, but virtually every single case I've made comes from either 27 mil thick, which is just over an inch to you American guys, and it's I thickness it, plane it, sand it, leave it to move a little bit, and then do the same process till it becomes sort of like flat and rigid.
Okay.
I'm stupid enough to use 15 and 16-inch wide pieces of walnut instead of joining them like everybody else does.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things I noticed when I looked over your site and looked over the photo gallery of some of your stuff is, I mean, some of this wood is just like improbable wood. I mean, my father was into woodworking. I always was too scared about cutting off my thumbs or something, right? But my father was into woodworking, and I would see when he would get fine wood, he was never getting big planks of it that could do those kind of surfaces, just I think because they were too expensive or they were too hard to work with, or I think in some cases aren't bigger planks of woods like that a lot more sensitive to the environment and climate and stuff?
And that's why I'm an idiot for doing it. Do you know the thing is, because I'm self-taught, I had no realization of whether you should or shouldn't do something. And if you look at Matthew's cases as well, virtual of Matthew's cases are one piece as well. It's, it call me an old romantic, but when you have one piece of wood, and what I try to do as well is, I now try and put the template at an angle, so it's sweeping down at about 35 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells a little story. It comes towards you. It's as if the case is, as you say, it's back to this thing about looking at something and thinking it's beautiful.
Right.
It comes towards you. It's got a little bit of a different shape. It's not the same as everybody else. And I just want all my customers to think when they get it that Ross is, and I have, but they think that Ross has put effort, time, thought into it. I mean, it just this week, end of last week, I went to buy a piece of Purple Heart because a customer was thinking about buying a case, and I knew I could do with a bit in anyway, and I spent 1,200 quid. So I've had to sell a little bit of my studio to pay for it, but it's back to this thing about passion. For the first couple of years, I thought, it's I didn't, not that I didn't fit in, but I didn't, because I was newbie as such with everything.
Right.
But now, what you're saying is passion is probably the thing, just picking the wood and putting it together, and when somebody says just a thank you because it's beautiful, you can't get any better than that when you make stuff.
Sure. Now, some of the stuff that you do has these large form panels, but then the other thing that you are kind of well known for is different kinds of striping, either striped woods or bizarre combination of wood bits, or they're insane. I mean, some of these things, the styling is insane, and what it reminds me of when I see that, it reminds me of the fact that your company name is Lamond Design, so the design part of it is even key to how you think of what you're doing, right?
Sometimes if you have two yogurts, they're both the same taste. One's fat-free, one's not. And then if you've the third one that's got berries in it, it just tastes a bit nicer, doesn't it? So you try that one. So that's what I do, is I think of something and I just try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does, then, or if it, as you said, I do like mad things, and stripes are, if you ever buy, people go out for a meal, they always wear a nice pinstripe shirt because it looks a little bit different and a little bit smart. So it's just what I've done. But actually, wait until you see the new one I'll come out with in about a month. I've had about 700, about 24 inches by 20 inches, and I've had it CNC'd out all wavy. So there's lots of mad wavy bits with little insets. And one part will be, say, oak, and all the insets will be walnut. So you can have it for the lids, or you can have it for the side panels. But what I can do is I can move because I've made it so big, with most of my cases, I can move it through 360 degrees and catch different angles of everything.
Oh, sure.
And then obviously the inserts can become stripes. Or once I've made the top of the case, I can then use the template again to cut within the other inserts and then put another piece of wood in. So you get these crazy, swirly, intricate things. I don't know how it'll actually look, but in my head, I know it works.
Yeah, well, that's kind of interesting because, I mean, first of all, it reminds me of when I read about like true craftsmen in a thing. Oftentimes they will do stuff that either nobody's going to see, or conversely, that everyone's going to see, but nobody would believe that anyone would do it, right? And I mean, this is what doing this kind of like CNC routing and then putting insets of like one kind of crazy ass wood into another kind of crazy ass wood. I mean, that seems like kind of improbable stuff, but it sort of like takes a person, again, with passion to just say, I don't even care if it makes sense. I have to try it because in my head it seems cool, right?
Yeah, I think you got me there. Yeah, that is. And the funny thing as well, so is before I started all this, I didn't even understand what having an eagle was. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting all these beautiful, great comments, and it was like having a third-person eagle checking just to see people like my cases. It was crazy because I've never had that attention or comments before.
Right.
So that was a great thing about doing it all, and that's a lot of thing that drives me is not the attention as such, but the fact that people enjoy the fact that I try different things and they're receptive to it. And a lot of people come back to me and say, have you tried like this, or have you thought about that? And I take all of that on board as well. So it's not just me and my ideas. I'm very happy to absorb everything round about me.
Sure, I was going to ask, how often do you have people come to you with very specific ideas? And, like, what are some of the crazier versions of that you might have run into?
Well, I don't know if it's crazy, but if you think 2064 HP in one case is crazy, then there's that one. That's
that sounds like bankruptcy to me, but
Lester is definitely a big-time modular addict, and he has been for 25, 30 years, and he just loves it. And he's a composer, and he can make his system do amazing things. But yeah, there's all these sort of big cases that I know I'm known for because there's not many other people who do them. But back to the one where I went for this Purple Heart last week was because this guy, I think it was west coast of the USA as well, wanted Purple Heart sides, and I could choose the middle part, the top part, and the front part. And the reason he wanted the Purple Heart is when he was younger, he got given tools. I can't remember exactly what job it was, but the handles were Purple Heart. And it was a very fond memory for him. And I love that sort of thing, you know?
Oh, sure.
It's a bit old school. But then the more and more we talked about it, is so you're going to have these purple sides. I mean, it literally is purple wood. It's amazing. It's going to be like a little Goik 9U, but the lid, the top part, is going to, I'm going to get the gnarliest piece of walnut, and the front I'm going to get the gnarliest piece of walnut. The base will be walnut, and because he said it's going to be seen by a lot of people, the back panel will be MDF veneered. So basically, it'll look like Cadbury's chocolate. They have brown and purple together, and it's a great combination.
Right.
So it also reminds me of 70s disco funky clothes together. So in my head, I can see it already. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So I love stories like that as well, where this is going to relate back to his early years of having these tools, and then he's got this new tool that he's designed.
Yeah.
Asked me to input a little bit, and then we'll make it, and it'll be exactly what he wants. You know.
Well, that's a beautiful story because, in fact, yeah, kind of aligning, once he gets the opportunity to make his own tool, he harkens back to his youth. I mean, that's a fabulous story.
And I'm excited because it's a color combination I've never really done before.
Right. Well, I don't know that anybody has, so it'll be interesting to see the photos of that. Now, you pointed out that you're fairly well known for doing like really large systems. Not only do you do them, but you do them in a really elegant way. One of the things that can sometimes happen with large systems is in order to have enough infrastructure there, they can kind of seem big and ponderous, right?
Yeah.
But you found a way to make sort of like the sweep and the angles and stuff work so that it doesn't look heavy. It doesn't look overwhelming. and it sort of like implies this. One of the things I like about Eurorack is it's kind of graceful. You know, you can get relatively thin or not too deep modules, and you can like build things that don't have to be thick and
Yeah,
sort of like ugly in that way. You can have swept looks, and they can be very elegant looking. But a lot of times when you see somebody kind of go over that 1,000 HP mark, right? There seems to be almost no way to not just make it look like an eye poke, or maybe even like 500 HP, right? At that point, then people start building them really thick, just so that we could put anything anywhere, and then the back ends up like going many many tiers. You seem to sort of like, first of all, help your customers make some choices about, let's try and make it a little more elegant than that. I mean, do you do that, or do they say to you that
I
that's how they want it?
I know. The one sort of thing that the level that being a little bit arrogant about is I guide my customers, because there's two things with it. The one thing is I will never take anybody's money in the first phone call or first emails, because I always say to them, it's not what you want from the case, it's what do you need from the case. Everybody wants a Eurorack case, everybody wants 1,000 HP, but what do you need from it? What are you a composer? Are you like me? Are you just a little bedroom DJ? Have you actually thought about, in a year's time, when you're addicted to this, that's why it's called Euro crack, have you left enough expansion? So I like to challenge my customers and get them to think really what they want from it. And usually the first conversation lasts at least half an hour, 35 minutes, and talk about different modules. And I'm not really big on modules and all the functions, but I know like a few things that to get them going. So I get them to go look at all that stuff. I get them on modular grid, playing around with it. I send them to YouTube. I send them to DivKid, Ben Wilson, who does all the videos.
Yep.
To the Eurorack section on Mufflers, where they've got all the videos. I send them to Analog Haven, because Analog Haven has a lot of videos when you click on the modules and go down to the bottom. Mm-hmm. I say, go searching, go looking, go see what you want now, but go see what you want to buy when your wages allow in 6 months to a year. And they're like, yeah, okay. So they come back, and it's not to get any more money out of them, because I'm not money driven. But do you know what it is? For the first year or two, I was too shy to tell people that they should get a bigger system, or etc. etc. And then I gained a bit of knowledge, and through talking to people and being on all the forums and Facebook, etc., I started saying to people, it's not enough. What are you getting a 6U for? Oh, I've got this plan, that plan. I says, well, you need more. I never tell them I need to get a 12U or a 15U. I just to go away and think. And then a lot of time they come back and they go, yeah, I think you're right. Because otherwise what happens is they have to sell the first case at maybe 20-30% loss to buy the next big case. So why not get the big case in the first place and just don't get the 2 or 3 modules for another couple of months? But you've got the space there and the power. Right. So yes, I tend to challenge them and then come back and we do work together. And then sometimes I will actually just turn around and say no. It's like somebody wanted me to put a handle on the top of a Goit case. And I went, no. What do you mean no? I said, because if you want this built, it's a no. There's no way I would put a handle or holes or anything like that on, because I love Goits as much as Matthew does. So yeah, a few times I'll put my foot down, but yeah, I generally want to make sure that customer is extremely happy with what I get them.
Right. So now, talking about Goits, can you imagine yourself moving into designs that are significantly different than the ones that he introduced you to?
But that's a funny question, because it's a yes and no answer. Is no, because I still love building Goits. If you stand in front of a Goit, it's the perfect curve. Depends on what width you want, but they all feel nice. And that's back to something you said earlier about adapting Goits. So sometimes what I do is I flip them on their head, or I add a little bit, or another row, or I stretch it, or I make it shallower, and play around with it. And Matthew then once said to me, he says, oh, don't worry, one day you'll have all your own designs and all that. And I said, no, I'm really happy making yours, because that's what people want. Now, probably half my business is carry cases, suitcases. And that DIY kit that I do as well. They sell. So But I just like different things. Yeah, I'll quite happily build things for people to get the money to go buy wood to build other things.
Right.
Somebody might or might not like, but I don't know. I just want to try it. You
Sure.
know.
Well, some of the things that you've done that are kind of like adaptations of the design, like the one I saw that really caught my eye, it was a fairly large case, but then you had like this separate thing that was in front of the case that was almost like a very thin skiff, like mini case that kind of would swoop towards you to be almost a desk-like thing in front of the main case. And I just thought, well, that was like a brilliant addition or adjunct to the original case design without in any way dishonoring the original design.
That's actually Matthew's design as well, which is
Oh, is it?
Matthew had the cutback at the front of the case, so the skiff has the same angle, and then it pushes in, so then you can extend, or what you can do is have it as a separate instrument, and then you can take it to your friend's studio or your friend's house, and then come back and plonk it straight in front, and then it becomes part of your system again.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about, and interesting. Well, there you go.
it's great because I always say to people that when they buy a Goik is, don't worry, we can. If you need more space, we can make it elegant and sit perfect, and
Find a way to do it, right?
yeah, for sure.
So now the other thing that I'm curious about is because you will often do things with really improbable woods or improbable combinations of woods and stuff like that, what is the process of you actually going to select the wood? Do you always have it in your mind what you're going to get and then you try and go find that? Or do you ever just like go to, I don't even know where you go to get wood. Do you go to the wood shop and just kind of like peruse around for something that catches your eye?
It's both. That's why I spend so much money on wood, and I'm always skint. Like last week, I knew I had to get some walnut. I also knew I was going to sell a few modules and things like that. To get the best price, I had to buy at least a third of a cubic meter, and then I'll get the best prices for all the different, even if it was only one plank of this and one plank of that.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it was one third of a cubic meter, it was fine. And I went 65 miles to a place called Nether Hayford, where it's called Good Timber. It's like a Christian commune, so I always feel that I'm never going to get conned. They don't have the cheapest prices, but they have fantastic service. So I'd phoned up Jaws and said I'm coming through, and we went to the wood pile, and he had 27mm stuff. He also had 20mm stuff, but they were 500mm wide, which is 20 odd inches wide. I mean, they're literally insane. So I can, and I don't like to waste wood, but I can then take my template and just move it everywhere till I pick a bit. Because what I do is a lot of times I move the template and have a black marker, and then mark it, and then have a look at it and think to myself, would somebody like that? Would this customer that I'm thinking of, after talking to them for weeks, like it? And if they do, I cut it out and make the case. And then, yeah, then someone then catches my eye, I'll just see how much money I've got in my pocket and buy it. Because I'll know in a month, 2, 6 months, I'll use it for something.
Interesting. Well, that also explains something that I see whenever I kind of just, let your photo gallery run, is that a lot of times, like with the side panels and stuff, the figuring will be really, even if it's just a single piece of wood and not one of the kind of composite things. So if it's a single piece of wood, there'll often be like really interesting things where the grains will come together and then go apart, or there's like really interesting figures. And for someone who's trying to very efficiently use the wood, it wouldn't be the kind of a thing that would naturally just show up, right? But now I can imagine you with your thing kind of moving it around a larger piece of wood, looking for the section that'll have some sort of an interesting expression.
Impact is the one that's ahead.
That seems to be almost like the icon now of what it is that you're designing.
Yeah, it is. It's I've sort of become obsessed about looking beautiful. I mean, I always say to people, I'm 5'8", nearly 16 stone, wee fat Scotsman, 44-inch chest, but my favourite word is prettiness. It's got to be pretty. If it doesn't look pretty, there's something nobody else will think that way. So I always look at all the gear that I'm doing, the stuff I'm doing, and it's also like like modules. I mean, the people that design these modules and the typeface, it's the same thing. It's like obsessing over the small details to make sure that everybody enjoys your product.
So this is just it's really interesting. I'm curious, what do you see for the future? What are the things that you're going to do to either better or different or take a total left-hand turn? What do you imagine is the future stretch for you?
I have no idea. I try not to copy other people. I mean, I pay Matthew a little royalty every time I sell one of his cases, because that was the deal at the very start. And despite other people just building these cases of very similar designs, I still do that because I'm a man of my word. I then have all my carry cases. The thing with Eurorack is defined by the rack. It's a fixed point.
Right.
The brackets and the rails are a fixed point. And you can only have so many curves, and you can only have it so wide. So that really determines it all. What I want to do is, I've got this great idea for a sort of suitcase. There's like really cool aluminium brackets or steel brackets on the side. And then when you lift the lid off, there's no hinges on the back. And when you lift the lid off, it sort of smoothly just pops up and hangs there. So it's like an open suitcase. But I have no idea how to design the bracket, etc., etc. But I'll bribe somebody with a case for them to design that. I tend to bribe a lot of people to do stuff. Do you want a case? I just need this done. But I looked at a lot of the people, and there's quite a few people making cases now, and I've helped quite a few of them, and I'm really happy to. It's like, it's not my market, it's not Matthew's market, it's not Dieter Doepfer's market, just because it was a small market. But the only thing I tell you is, I will just, whatever I make, I will make it to the best of my abilities and pick the most pretty and beautiful woods for each and individual customer, whatever it may be. As you said earlier, I could never envisage nearly 5 years I've been going now, so I could never envisage that. So I'm not going to plan to take over the world. I just go to work and people pay me some money and they let me do what I want and everybody's happy. So I can't really say any more than that.
Well, there's not much better of a story to be said than that, though. That's a great tale. Ross, I want to thank you so much for kind of filling us in on how you do the thing you do. It was, as expected, it was fascinating, and I appreciate you kind of opening your door and letting me ask a lot of questions, even if it seemed like I might have not known what I was talking about. But it was really interesting to hear about it, man.
Very enjoyable, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much. And with that, I'll say goodbye.
Au revoir.
Many thanks to Ross for taking the time to talk about woodworking, building cases, and his entree into the modular world. Pretty incredible guy, and it was a really great story. I want to thank you for listening. This month is kind of a special month for podcasters. There is an effort among podcasters to try and get people more aware of what's going on with podcasting. So if you could do me a favor and just share this or any other interesting podcast with people that you know out there, and if you happen to put it on social media, please use the hashtag tripod, that's hashtag TRYPOD, to try and raise awareness of podcasting as a way to get the word of artists and interesting people out there. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll catch you actually in 2 weeks. Next week I'm going to be at the Berklee School of Music for their Voltage Connect series, so if you happen to be in Boston, swing on by and check it out. Otherwise, I will see you in 2 weeks when we will continue our Art plus Music plus Technology podcast. Thanks a lot, and see you soon. Bye.